My name is Lorraine Mercer. I'm 40 years old, a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. On Mother's Day, I drove 5 hours to see my mother. I brought lilacs. I brought a photo album. I'd spent 2 nights making, and I brought the hope that, maybe, after years of being the person who fixed everything, I could finally just be her daughter. Instead, my mother looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I wish you'd never been my daughter." I stood up, straightened my napkin and said, "Then pretend you never had one." I walked out. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Bring my car back or I'm calling the police." I looked at the message twice. Then I typed 2 words. "Go ahead." 45 minutes later, 3 police cars pulled up outside my mother's house. And one of those officers was about to discover something my family had spent years pretending wasn't true. That house wasn't my mother's. It was mine, and the car she'd just reported stolen. That was mine too. But the car wasn't the real reason everything fell apart. The real reason was? A $12,400 credit card debt opened in my name, and the person who opened it was my own brother. Let me take you back. I had spent 18 years in the Army. I'm a logistics officer. My job is simple to describe. I make sure soldiers have what they need to survive. Food, fuel, equipment, everything has to arrive before it's needed. I was good at it. But my family taught me a different kind of logistics. They taught me how to keep everyone supplied, while nobody asked what it was costing me. My father died when I was 3. My brother Wade was 27, and always between jobs. My mother had medical bills, a mortgage, and no idea how she was going to manage alone. So I started sending money home every month. At first, it was temporary. Then temporary became years. My mother never asked what I was living on. She never asked what I wanted. The question was always, "How much can you send this month?" The furnace needed fixing. Wade needed gas money. The mortgage was late. There was always something. And every time I paid, my mother said the same thing. "That's what family is for." I believed her. Then in 2014, my mother's landlord sold her rental home. She called me crying. So I bought a house. A 3-bedroom house in Beaver Creek, Ohio. The deed had my name on it. I paid the mortgage from Kentucky. I paid the taxes. I paid the insurance. But I gave my mother the keys. When she walked inside, she looked around and said, "Finally. A house of my own. Not thank you. Not, I'll pay you back. Just a house of my own." I said nothing. That silence became the most expensive thing I'd ever bought. For 12 years, everyone treated that house as my mother's. The neighbors called it Judith's house. My brother told people Mom owned it, and I slept on the sofa whenever I visited. I was paying for every room in that house. I just never had one. Then came the car. In 2023, I bought a new SUV. In 2025, the Army sent me to Poland for a 10-month rotation. I left the SUV at the Ohio house because I didn't want it sitting unused in storage. I asked my family to start it once a week when I returned. The SUV had 9,000 extra miles. There was a dent in the driver's seat. It smelled like cigarettes, and my mother was calling it Mom's car. I took it back. The title was in my name. The registration was in my name. The insurance was in my name. I thought that would be the end of it. It would have 5 weeks before Mother's Day. I received an email that made my stomach drop. A credit card had been opened, using my social security number. The balance was $12,400. I had never opened the account. I called the bank. They froze it. Then they sent me the transaction history. Truck tires, auto, parts, restaurants, and for casino charges. The first purchase had been made while I was in Poland. I knew exactly who had used the card. My brother Wade. I drove to Ohio. I put the statements on the kitchen table. Wade looked at them. Then he said, I was going to pay it back. I asked when. He said it's family money anyway. My mother didn't ask him why he had opened the account. Instead, she turned on me. She actually got down on her knees. Please, Lorraine, you'd put your own brother in prison. I didn't call the police, not that day. Instead, I made Wade sign an agreement. He admitted the debt. He promised to make his first payment within 30 days. If he did, I would tell the bank I couldn't identify the person responsible. He signed. Then the deadline came. Asterisk, nothing. No payment, no call, nothing, still. I drove 5 hours for Mother's Day. I bought lilacs, I brought the photo album, and I told myself that maybe I could finally have one normal family dinner. My niece Emma greeted me at the door. She hugged me and whispered, "I'm glad you came, Aunt Rainey." Inside, everything looked normal. My mother opened Wade's cheap gift and acted like it was priceless. My flowers stayed wrapped on the counter. We ate ham and potatoes. Then I looked at Wade. I kept my voice calm. "Your 30 days are over. Where are we?" "That's all I asked," my mother exploded. "Not today, Mom. I'm just asking a question." She said I'd been keeping score my entire life. She said the army had made me cold. She said a real daughter doesn't embarrass her family. Then she looked directly at me and said the sentence that changed everything. "I wish you'd never been my daughter." The room went silent. I stood up, straightened my napkin and said, "Then pretend you never had one." I walked out. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. My mother, "Bring my car back, or I'm calling the police." I looked at the registration, sitting in the glove box. My name, my vehicle, my insurance. I typed, "Go ahead." Then I called my insurance company and confirmed everything. 20 minutes later, my niece called, Aunt Rainey. She actually called the police. I drove back. When I arrived, 3 police cars were outside the house. My mother stood on the porch. My brother was beside her. The neighbors were watching through their curtains. The patrol sergeant checked the license plate. Then he asked my mother, "Ma'am, whose vehicle is this?" She pointed toward me. "That's my daughter's." She took it. He looked at the registration, then back at her. "Is your name on the title?" my mother said. "It's a family car." The sergeant paused. Then he said, "That's not what I asked." I stepped forward and handed him my military ID, registration, insurance, and a photo of the title. He looked at everything. Then he looked at my mother. "Ma'am, the vehicle belongs to her." My mother started shouting at me. "You're a colonel! Do something!" That sentence told me everything. Even after all those years, I wasn't her daughter. I was still her emergency fund, her backup plan, her solution. And then the police ran my brother's name. They found an active bench warrant. He had missed a court date related to a drunk driving charge. Right there on my mother's porch, Wade was handcuffed. My mother stared at me. "Do something, Lorraine." I could have called someone. I could have tried to get him released. Instead, I simply said, "Not tonight." That night, I checked into a motel. I opened my laptop, and I did something I'd avoided for 17 years. I counted the mortgage, the roof, the furnace, my mother's dental work, Wade's, gas money, utilities, phone bills, emergency transfers, everything. I added it twice. The number was approximately $217,000. 17 years to $117,000. And suddenly, I understood something. I hadn't been keeping my family together. I'd been teaching them what I was for. I wasn't a daughter. I was a supply line. The next morning, I went to the police station. I filed the identity theft report. This time, I named Wade. I gave the detective the credit card records, my deployment orders, and the agreement Wade had signed, admitting the debt. The detective looked at the paperwork. Then he said, "Colonel, you've brought us quite a file." My brother's story didn't survive long. Meanwhile, I started shutting down the supply line, the phone plan, the extra credit card, the gas money, the utilities I had been paying. Everything stopped, but I didn't stop paying the mortgage. That house was still mine, and I wasn't going to destroy my own credit just to hurt them. Then, I sent a certified letter, 30 days to vacate. My mother and Wade were officially occupants of a house they had spent years calling theirs. The family went crazy. Cousins called me. A church member called. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly had opinions. They said I was cruel. They said I was abandoning my mother. They said family should forgive. Then my cousin arranged a family meeting. 9 people sat around a table. They had a solution. I withdraw the police report, cancel the eviction, let Mom and Wade stay, keep paying everything, and Wade would repay me when he could. In exchange, my mother would forgive me for Mother's Day. I looked around the table. Everyone seemed relieved. They thought I'd say yes, because I'd always said yes. I reached into my jacket and touched the index card in my wallet. $217,000. For a moment, I wanted to put it on the table. I wanted them to see what their definition of family had cost me. But I didn't, because I finally understood something. If I put that number on the table, I'd still be negotiating the price of my love, so I closed my wallet and said, no. I walked out. A few days later, my niece Emma called me. She had found an old shoebox. Inside were money order receipts. They belonged to my grandmother. My mother had been sending her $50 every month for years. Her entire childhood had been built around the same idea. Love meant owing someone. A daughter owed her mother. A son owed his family. And somehow, that debt had passed down to me, for the first time. I felt sorry for my mother, but feeling sorry for someone doesn't mean you have to continue their pattern. Then, one evening, my mother called. Her voice was different, soft. She hadn't called me Lorraine. She called me Lori. Nobody had called me that. Since my father died, she asked me to come to dinner. Just the 2 of us. I went. The house was half packed. Boxes lined the hallway. My mother made pot roast. She looked across the table and said, I said something terrible to you. Then she told me the truth. She said she'd watched every promotion. She'd saved newspaper clippings about me. She was proud of me. But she'd never learned how to express love because nobody had taught her. She apologized for a moment. I felt like the little girl I'd been, waiting to become again. Then she slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a copy of my police statement. She wanted me to withdraw it. She wanted me to cancel the eviction. She wanted everything to go back to the way it was. And she said, then I can be your mother again. That's when I understood. Even her apology had a price. I reached into my wallet. I touched the $217,000 card. Then I put it away. I looked at her. I'm not calling the detective. She stared at me. The house stays mine. Eyes filled with anger. You are dead to this family. I stood up, straightened my chair, and said, go ahead. Then I walked out. I got into my SUV, drove to the end of the street and stopped. I waited for 17 years. Whenever I left my mother's house, my phone eventually buzzed. There was always another emergency, another bill, another request, another reason to turn around. But that night, my phone stayed silent. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10, nothing, and suddenly I understood. The reaching had always been about what I could provide. I cried that night, not for the mother sitting in that house, for the mother I'd spent my entire life imagining, the one I kept trying to earn, the one who never actually existed. Then I called Denise, an old army friend. It's done, I said. She asked, what do you need? I thought for a moment. Couch, I said, and a Sunday dinner that doesn't cost anything. She laughed. Drive south. The next few months were paperwork. Wade accepted a plea agreement. He was ordered to repay the money. The drunk driving case was handled separately. I never wanted him in prison. I wanted my name back. The house was emptied. My mother moved in with my aunt. Wade found work, and I stayed away. I didn't go watch them carry boxes out. Some victories don't need an audience eventually. The house sold at the closing. I signed my name for the final time. And I realized something. For years, every signature I'd made connected to my family had purchased peace. This signature bought freedom, with part of the money. I bought myself a small cabin near Fort Campbell, 2 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, a crooked porch. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. The first time I held the key, I realized something. For 12 years, I'd been buying shelter for other people. That was the first key I'd ever bought for myself. 6 months later, Denise came over for dinner. After we ate, she and her husband started washing the dishes. I tried to get up. Denise stopped me. Sit down. That was harder than any deployment. Learning to receive help, learning that I didn't have to earn every kindness, learning that being loved didn't require a payment. My mother eventually sent me a birthday card. She wrote that she hoped I was doing well then in the postscript. She asked whether I could help Wade because he'd been having a difficult time. I read it twice, and for the first time, I didn't get angry. I simply understood she was still my mother. Still trapped in the same pattern. But I wasn't holding the chain anymore. I recycled the card, not with hatred, with peace. My niece Emma still calls me every week. One day she asked, "Why? Do you always pick up when I call?" I smiled and gave her the answer my family had used for years. That's what family is for. But this time, it meant something different. Not money, not debt, not sacrifice. Love. This past Mother's Day, I didn't drive 5 hours. I woke up early, made coffee, and planted lilacs beside my cabin. The same flowers my mother used to grow. Emma came to visit. She brought a pot roast she'd made herself. It was too salty. The carrots were undercooked, and it was the best Mother's Day meal I'd ever had. Because there was no envelope, no emergency, no bill, no one asking me to fix something. We sat on the porch, my phone stayed silent, and for once, silence didn't mean someone was angry. It meant I was free. I've learned something since that Mother's Day. Love you have to keep paying for isn't love. It's a toll, and sometimes the bravest thing a giving person can do is close the road and see who still chooses to walk toward them. I spent 17 years being my family's supply line. Then one day, I finally resupplied myself, my name, my home, asterisk, my Sundays, my peace, and the people who reach for me now. They don't reach because they need something. They reach because they love me. And that's the difference if you've ever been the person everyone depends on, but nobody checks on. Remember this. Setting a boundary isn't cruelty. Walking away isn't betrayal. And saying no doesn't make you a bad daughter, son, brother, sister, or friend. Sometimes no is the first honest thing you've ever said. That's my story. 1 Mother's Day, 1 phone call, 3 police cars, a $217,000 lesson, and 1 little brass key that finally opened a door that belonged to me. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you don't have to keep paying for a seat at a table you were never valued at.